The Croatian Home Guard was part of the armed forces of the Independent State of Croatia, which existed during World War II. Formation. The Croatian Home Guard was founded in April 1941, a few days after the founding of the Independent State of Croatia itself, following the collapse of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. It was done with the authorization of German occupation authorities. The task of the new Croatian armed forces was to defend the new state against both foreign and domestic enemies. Its name was taken from the old Royal Croatian Home Guard, the Croatian section of the Royal Hungarian Landwehr component of the Austro-Hungarian Army organization. The Croatian Home Guard was originally limited to 16 infantry battalions and 2 cavalry squadrons, 16,000 men in total. The original 16 battalions were soon enlarged to 15 infantry regiments of 2 battalions each between May and June 1941. Organized into 5 divisional commands, some 55,000 men. Support units included 35 former Yugoslav light tanks returned by Italy, 4 engineer battalions, 10 artillery battalions, a cavalry regiment in Zagreb and an independent cavalry battalion at Sarajevo. 2 independent motorized infantry battalions were based at Zagreb and Sarajevo respectively. The fledgling army crushed the revolt by Serbs in Eastern Herzegovina in June, and fought in July in eastern and western Bosnia. They fought in Eastern Herzegovina again, when Croatian, Dalmatian and Slavonian battalions reinforced local units. By the end of 1941, the NDH military forces consisted of 85,000 Home Guard and the National Police Force of about 6,000. In January 1942, it forced the partisans in eastern Bosnia back into Montenegro, but could not prevent the subsequent advance into western Bosnia. Clearly conventional infantry divisions were too cumbersome, and so, in September 1942, 4 specially designed mountain brigades were formed. Each had 2 regiments totaling for 1,000-man battalions, mounted and machine gun companies, a 2-gun artillery group, 16 light and 16 heavy machine guns, and 6 mortars. 2 volunteer regiments, and a mobile gendarmerie brigade were also established, but, by November 1942, the partisans had occupied northern Bosnia, and the army could only hold main towns and communications routes, abandoning the countryside. During 1943, 4 Jaeger brigades were set up, each with 4 500-man battalions in 2 regiments and an artillery group, equipped for hilly terrain. The Home Guard reached its maximum size at the end of 1943, when it had 130,000 men. By 1944, the Croatian army had 90,000 men, though only 20,000 were front-line combat troops, organized in 3 mountain, 4 Jaeger and 8 static garrison brigades, and the 1st Recruit Training Division. The Croatian Home Guard also included an air force, the Air Force of the Independent State of Croatia, the backbone of which was provided by 500 former Royal Yugoslav Air Force officers and 1,600 NCOs with 125 aircraft. By 1943, the ZNDH was 9,775 strong and equipped with 295 aircraft. The small navy of the Independent State of Croatia was limited by a special treaty with Fascist Italy. The navy comprised a few riverine craft and, from 1943, coastal patrol boats. After the Italian armistice, the Croatian navy was expanded, but the loss of an ally further weakened the Croatian state. Command structure. The Home Guard was under the command of the Ministry of the Croatian Home Guard, in 1943 renamed to the Ministry of the Armed Forces. The ministers were Slavko Kvaternik, Vilko Begic, Miroslav Navratil, Ante Varkic, Nikola Steinfeld. The Home Guard also had its General Staff. Chiefs of the General Staff included Vladimir Laksa, Ivan Perpik, Fedor Dragailov. Weaknesses. Despite being the best armed and having the best logistics and infrastructure of all the domestic military formations in the World War II Balkans, the Croatian Home Guard failed to become an efficient fighting force for a variety of reasons. The most immediate reason was the lack of professional officers. Although initially significant numbers of ethnic Croat officers from the old Yugoslav army joined the Croatian Home Guard, most not entirely voluntarily, they were mistrusted by the new Usta's puppet regime. Instead, the higher ranks were filled by presumably more reliable former Austro-Hungarian officers. Those men were older, retired and generally had little knowledge of modern warfare. NDH authorities tried to remedy this by forming officer schools and having junior staff trained in Italy and Germany. But effects of this policy came too late to affect the outcome of the war. The other, more practical, reason was the rivalry between the Croatian Home Guard and the Usta's militia, the less numerous but yet more reliable paramilitary formation. Those two formations never properly integrated their activities, and the militia was gradually taking more and more dwindling resources from the Home Guard. Third and arguably most important reason, the gradual decline in support for the Usta's regime among ethnic Croats, first fueled by the abandonment of Dalmatia to Italy, then by the prospect of Home Guard troops being used by the Germans as cannon fodder on the Eastern Front, a repeat of the same traumatic experience from the First World War. This process intensified while the prospect of the Axis powers, and NDH with them, losing the war was getting more certain. Domo-Brani dissension over the sadistic policies of the Usta's led to the outright persecution, deportation, and murder of Home Guard soldiers within the Jasenovac concentration camp system. Defections. As early as 1941, the Croatian Home Guards was being infiltrated by resistance groups, Yugoslav partisans, who were based on non-sectarian ideology and had Croatian statehood as part of the pretext, were more successful in making inroads into the Home Guard than Serb-dominated Chetniks. A year later, this manifested in Croatian partisan commanders referring to the Home Guard as their supply depot, due to its personnel being reliable source of arms, ammunition, general supplies, and intelligence. The final stages. Following the capitulation of Italy in September 1943 and the first aid shipments from the Western Allies, the military situation in Yugoslavia began to even more dramatically shift in favor of the partisans. By mid-1944, many Home Guard personnel and units began to openly side with partisans, leading to some instances of mass defections that included battalion-size formations as well as some ZNDH aircraft. By November 1944, the defections and desertions, as well as the creaming off of troops to the Ustashi brigades of the 369th, 373rd, and 392nd so-called Legionnaire divisions reduced the size of the Croatian Home Guard to 70,000 men, down from its peak at 130,000 in 1943. Ranks. Personnel. Fedor Dragailov, Colonel General and Chief of Staff. Mihailo Lukic, General. Franjo Simic, Colonel. Mato Dukovac, Ace Pilot. List of generals killed in action: Salko Alakardic. Eduard Bona Bunic, died of natural causes during World War II. Kosta Bada. Pero Blaskovic, executed in Yugoslavia. Juna Zajanovic. Vilko Begic, Otenkas, Stupand Olzul, Julia Fritz, Enrico Gregoric, Thuro Grujic, August Gustavich, Vladimir Laksa, died in Yugoslav prisons. Milan Desovic, Franjo Dolatsky, Slavko Stanza, fate unknown. Cyril Danda, Roman Domanic, Stupan Gasic, Stupan Grlic, lived in emigration. Rafael Boban, Ivan Brozovic, Slavko Cizaric, Matija Kanik, Thuro Dragicevic, Fedor Dragilov. Home Guard in modern Croatia. As Croatia gained independence during the Yugoslav wars, the new government under the presidency of Franjo Tudman began the process of rebuilding the historical Home Guards. Instead of treacherous quislings, or at best a ridiculously inefficient formation as they were portrayed by the previous communist regime, they are hailed as a symbol of Croatian statehood and military virtue, drawing on the history of the Imperial Croatian Home Guard. The very name Home Guard is taken as a symbol of a true Croatian soldier not being involved in any aggressive war or attacking someone else's country. The rehabilitation of Home Guards is only reflected in surviving Home Guards receiving pensions and other state benefits. Home Guards disabled during the war received state recognition in 1992, equivalent to partisan veterans. The Home Guard has also received recognition from the government in helping to establish the Democratic Republic of Croatia. There has been no official historical revisionism of the role in World War II, and the measure of providing pensions is viewed just as a social security measure because most of the surviving members could not provide for themselves under the communist rule, not being able to gain employment, etc. The local base Croatian army regiments were named the Home Guard regiments. They were first created on the 24th of December 1991, during the Croatian War of Independence, and ceased to exist in a 2003 reorganization.